Okay, it's back to the regular videos. Still on the subject of morality and how we define it. Whether there is such a thing as an objective or scientific, logic-based definition of morality or ethics that would be applicable in viewing all of life, like from a universal point of view, from a non-human point of view, just from the point of view of intelligence. And that's sort of the point I'm trying to get to. Still getting some argument. I mean, the one guy doesn't, it's really over the words. There can be there's no such thing as, it just doesn't exist as a reality. Significance. There's no significance to the actuality of conscious life on Earth if there isn't an intelligence to contemplate it. It doesn't mean anything then. That's basically the conclusion. That there's no part of it doesn't exist as a concept. Concepts cannot exist as realities. The only thing that's real is the speed of light and the speed of sound. Those are real constructs, and the strong force and weak force holding atoms together, even though those are just models in our minds, even though those are just concepts attempting to duplicate a reality, that somehow is more legitimate than the question of meaning. Meaning has no legitimacy for some people as a universal reality, significance, whatever the word we want to use, importance, meaning, consequence. Well, anyway, and I am. To me, it's really an important subject, just because it's the whole ball, it's everything. I mean, you can't live a productive life unless you understand what the ground rules are, what the definition of productive is. And for many people, it's always going to come down to, for them, happiness. Happiness is the name of the game. And I put them in just the cheese chasing category. I mean, they're seeing nothing but the cheese. And that's the whole point of life, is the pursuit of this thing called happiness. And I would make the argument that by this objective morality, by this objective standard, that you're required to do more than that. That there's a consequence, there's a cost to benefit analysis that can be done regarding your existence and its impact on the world. And that it isn't about, that this morality and this ethics has nothing to do with subjectivity. It has nothing to do with what we appreciate as individuals. So I guess I'm going to try to concentrate on that part of the argument. And it's almost like, the pyro guy that this video will be a response to, he basically said suffering is not objectively wrong. And I never said that it's objectively wrong. What I said was that it's objectively negative, that it's a negative force, and that the equation will decide whether it's a negative circumstantially worth the price that's paid for it. So I'm not saying all suffering is a net deficit. I'm saying that it must be accounted for, that there are rewards to suffering, I suppose, that are worth the price you pay. Suffering does teach us something. I would argue that much of what it teaches us is just a perceptual understanding. It'd be better if we could convey that perception, that understanding, without actually engaging in the suffering itself. Having knowledge or memory of a suffering is certainly easier to cope with than experiencing the actual suffering.
If we look at our minds, our brains, and how they work, I've explained this before, but yeah, we have this part that controls our reflexes, and very subconscious, very unconscious mechanisms. You know, our heartbeat regulates our hormones, the rest of it. Balance and coordination, muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. Then there's this conditioned part, this conditioned psychology that does all the stuff, the serious emotional stuff, the serious feeling that we do is all goes through that filter. And it basically defines what pleases us and what dissatisfies us, what feels good and what feels bad. And then we have this intellect on top that has to function through these two other brains, but that can logically remains fairly independent if it chooses to, if it has the discipline to function that way. And so I know most people aren't going to make this. I mean, I always assume that people are understanding the difference between their subjective psychology and their intellectual intelligence, because they really are two different things. And some of it's very strong and powerful. You know, we're very unwilling to admit certain truths. I mean, I can intellectually understand that my father's welfare is no better than any other, you know, no more important than any other human being's welfare. I can intellectually understand that he's not a superior being. Subjectively, I'm probably never going to feel that way about it. I'm probably never going to be able to understand him subjectively that way. He's always going to mean more to me. He's always going to have an importance that goes beyond what can be intellectually justified. And we do that regarding race, we do that regarding our sexual preferences, we do that, and then those preferences in turn completely corrupt our definition and understanding of beauty, what awes us, what impresses us, what invokes desire and pleasure in us. And that's all very subjective. It is a conditioned response, and it has no intellectual integrity. And understanding that is really necessary here, because I really can't argue with people who are going to keep saying that beauty has something to do with an objective definition of morality. Because I'm not talking about what feels good, I'm not talking about what we cherish as individuals. I mean, we all cherish our own lives more than, obviously, in how we act and behave. We are selfish creatures, and we are going to perceive ourselves as more valuable than others around us. We're going to act in our own interest often. I mean, obviously we can be better than that, and we can do better than that, and many people do, but we're always trying to overcome that selfishness and that perception, and that's sort of what that's the real, you have to get over that first obstacle of recognizing the distinction between these two things. There's no scientific definition of beauty. It's an impossibility. You could say, you could base a scientific definition based on symmetry, but never beauty. Things that might add up to beauty for us, pleasant combinations of colors or some other thing might have some, minor scientific value, but most of what we cherish, most of what we enjoy is just a food preference. It's like saying that somehow chocolate mousse is better than a chocolate grasshopper or some other thing, and there's no objective standard that could ever say that or would even attempt to, because we all know that those preferences are personal. They are a manifestation of our conditioning, not a manifestation of intellect. And so when I'm talking about what we value in terms of a morality, an objective morality, life is, we have to assume first that, okay, we can't just presume it has value. We cannot presume that creation was purposeful. And, to get the argument from atheists that I'm talking like a religious person, when it's they who are talking like the religious person. They have presumed nature, they have replaced God with a benevolent, wise, and often use the word perfect to describe nature. Now, what in nature, where's this perfection? The perfection is only in our own perception. Obviously, we aren't perfect. I mean, we can see more perfection in design in other animals that are on this planet, and we could certainly if given the power, or we had the power to reform the beast, we would make the beast better. And beyond that, the whole idea of animals eating each other and causing each other great harm is not perfect. And so, I'm going to run out of time, but that's really the argument here, is that, first let's get real. You cannot assume that nature is purposeful. It is ignorant, stupid forces. And so the fact that we exist means nothing. It has no credibility to the purpose of our existence, or the meaning of it, or the significance. We cannot give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We must earn a perception of value. We must prove it, not merely assume it.